Peace inside my mind, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my mind, God and only God I live to see. Peace inside my mind, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my mind, God and only God I live to see. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti, Om. 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 Peace inside my heart, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my heart, God and only God I live to see. Peace inside my heart, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside my heart, God and only God I live to see. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti, Om. 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 Peace inside the earth, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside the earth, God and only God I live to see. Peace inside the earth, God and only God is moving me. Peace inside the earth, God and only God I live to see. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti, Om. 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 Om Shanti.
Good morning. Just checking you out. You're all looking good this morning. How are you feeling? Awesome, great, wonderful. Yeah. Brand new year, brand new possibility, everything. It's all new. Actually, Mary Morrissey, I love her. She says, every day is a brand new baby day. And I like to think about that because sometimes there's things that happened yesterday that I don't really appreciate. But if it's a brand new baby day, then I get to experience it with new eyes. I was going to Safeway the other day, and they have the Amazon lockers there at Safeway, and they all have a name. And I went up to this Amazon locker, and I was looking at it, and it was Crableg, Crabble. And Gina looks at me, and she says, crab leg. It's called crab leg, not crabble. Oh man. Today I'm talking about humility, so. We're designing a year this year that's really appropriate for what my heart is calling for. And our theme this year is spirituality in action, being a force for good in the world. And it's designed around the 10 prophetic justice principles developed by Reverend James A. Forbes. And fortunately, there's an amazing man out there. His name is Reverend Dr. William Barber. And he's adopted these principles as a way to change society. And if you don't know who he is, you should definitely Google him. Listen to his talks, they're great. But I'll tell you a little bit. After Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King got shot, there was a mission that he had, which was about taking care of our poor. Because it ends up that typically the poor people in any nation, but the poor people in our nation, are the ones who get the worst of whatever's happening. And if we focused on that population, then we could change the entire world. If we focused on assisting and utilizing and being a benefit to that population who ends up getting the worst of if there's bad water or if there's not so good food or not so kind services. There's a bunch of things that happen in the world that group of people tends to be at the bottom of the barrel for. Undeserving. Because we're born in a society, it's almost like a caste society. It doesn't happen like it happens in India, which they've changed, but there is a way that there's an unconscious belief system that our country has put on about people who are in trouble, people who have challenges in their life. And it's what I've noticed is about what privilege is. Now, privilege is rights that are given to people which are unearned. And so as I look at this year, it's been intelligently designed so that each and every one of us can awaken to our own spiritual magnificence and being a force for good in the world in a way that benefits and uplifts others. But it's a very tender line, I will say, because I can be here as a cisgendered, white, able-bodied person, and I have privilege, which means I have rights and ways of being that were given to me just because of those elements in my life that I was born into. And I have this vision that is Centers for Spiritual Living's vision, which is creating a world that works for everyone. And I have this vision that is Center for Spiritual Living Seattle's vision that is being a force for good in the world. But how can I perpetuate that vision if I have behaviors and thought systems that are counterproductive to that vision? And so that's what we're going to look at this year. That's the idea behind being spirituality in action. And it happens internally in me just as much as it happens internally in you. And I get to do the work in me, but I also get to be out into the world doing the work. So what I've learned is one of the most important things is being teachable. I read an article about Common Sense Leaders by Jeff McMaster. And he said, in order to become someone able to be used by God for greatness, you need to be characterized by the acronym FAT. Faithful, available, and teachable. Faithful, available, and teachable. You got to get fat in God. You got to bring it on. Meister Eckhart said, be willing to be a beginner every single morning. Shannon Alder said, happiness is always on the other side of being teachable. Israel Moore Ayiver said, our troubles begin the moment our teachers believe they know it all, and our learners think they are not teachable. Even Albert Einstein said, once you stop learning, you start dying. So in what ways are you not willing to continue to learn? In what ways have you already contained mastery? For me, and this is where the idea comes in when we're talking about these themes through the year. We have themes like helping the poor and protecting the vulnerable. I can go into the place of, I'm so evolved that I am helping the poor because it makes me feel better. I'm so evolved. I'm so much more spiritually evolved than you. And I know exactly what to do. And that's not the place I want to go to. I want to go to the place that's the second most important thing, which is being humble, humility. And I look at this in me too. Embracing humility. Now, humility is not groveling, but humility is freedom from pride or arrogance. The quality or state of being humble, and when I looked up humble, it said, not haughty, arrogant, or pretentious. And I think that sometimes, especially for many of us who've been doing spiritual work for years and years and years, that there is a spiritual mastery that's come through, and then there comes that spiritual arrogance of like, I know more than you, or I'm better than you, or I have the answers and you don't. So and another thing is when we have this teaching, we talk about embracing our power. We talk about embracing our power and our lives and not letting others be the source of our happiness and instead relying on our divine source. But sometimes when people embrace their power, they think it's about overpowering. When it's embraced in a way that's being teachable and being humble, it's about empowering. Ask yourself, now this is really easy. This is really easy for me to say, oh, you act this way, or you do this, or you do that. It's much harder to go in here and say, where have I done this? Where am I perpetuating this? Have you ever thought, I know more than you, so I'm superior. I'm better than you. I'm holier than you. Ask yourself in your own professions if you've ever done that to somebody else. Now, how many of you have learned something from a child? Sometimes the harder realization is to discover within ourselves our own sense of felt superiority, of felt overpowering. Now, as the more I learn about privilege, the more I realize that there's privileges that are unconscious that I have, and that I can unconsciously not even know I'm doing those things. I can unconsciously speak words that mean that I am superior than you. And I know that as a white person, that came from me, not from my parents, not from my religion of origin, but it came from the images that happened in society, from the TV, from movies, from news. And I've had these overwhelming images that have taught me the lesson that white is superior than other races. And it's hard to say that. It sucks, and it's embarrassing, because I don't want to admit that. But I took that There's a test online that you can take. It's called the unconscious bias test. It's by Harvard. There's like 12 different tests. If you want to be humbled, that's a good way to humble yourself. Because I took those tests thinking, oh, I believe in this stuff. I'm doing great work in the world. And then I realized there's unconscious patterns that are operating in my life that are not in alignment with my beliefs. And what we teach in Science of Mind is that we have to bring those beliefs to the surface. We have to acknowledge that they're there before we can heal them. And so I acknowledge that they're there, and I'm ready to heal them because I am not playing in that world anymore. But it takes humility, and it takes admitting that there's things that I'm contributing with that don't align with what I really want. And I'm willing to change. And I'm willing to be open, and I'm willing to know that there is a greater good in me that can heal that. Because it isn't my essential nature. My essential nature is all about love. But I know that there's a way to cultivate the humility in me. At the Greater Good, there's a Greater Good Institute at Berkeley. They had this article about humility. And they said that humility is a trait that cultivates a powerful compassion for humanity. And I wonder, it's really interesting because in our strategic plan, I've read the strategic plan. You all created this, and you created a new vision and mission for yourselves for this spiritual community recently before I came on board. So I read all about it. And the interesting thing is, two of the top values that this community says is the top two values: compassion and diversity. So what does that mean in order for me to step in alignment with that compassion? It means I need to cultivate my humility. And there's 3 ways that you can do that. The first is embracing your humanness. Just because I said crabble doesn't mean that my intrinsic nature is that I'm a terrible person. Which that's a silly example, but oftentimes if one loses their job, or if a relationship fails, or something on the outside of our lives is going in a way that doesn't seem to be how we want it to, then we take it on personally. Like it is about my intrinsic value. Each and every one of our intrinsic value is absolutely cherished by the divine. Each and every one of us are holy expressions of the divine. And if I can get to the place where I realize that experience on the outside isn't who I intrinsically am on the inside, then I know I can make a change and love myself through anything that's happened. Oftentimes, I listen to, does anybody else have the committee in their head? I mean, I have a few, I got like the doubting person. Oh, I doubt you can do that. And then I got the judgmental person. Who do you think you are if you think you can do that? And then and then I've got like the really positive, motivated person, like, you can do that, you're awesome, But they're all going on at the same time, and sometimes there's 3, and sometimes there's 15 or 20. And in order for me to really recognize that that's all the humanness, and I can know that all of those exist simultaneously, and yet there's a part of myself that is untouched by all of that is sacred and holy. That no matter what that outside circumstance or my inside voices tell me, that really there's a part of me that has intrinsic value just because I am a part of the divine. I am a part of the most holy expression on this planet, a uniquely individualized expression that God, if you call it God, or Spirit, or the universe, has shown up today to specifically express itself in its variety, in its multiplicity, in its beauty, through each and every one of us. And just because something happens in my job, or my relationship, or my finances, it does not diminish that. And so the second thing to cultivate humility, the first one was embracing your humanness. The second thing is practicing mindfulness and self-compassion. According to the scientists, humble people have an accurate picture of themselves, both their faults and their gifts, which helps them see what might need changing within. Now, just because I go to Zumba class and I don't have rhythm doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. I'm still working on it, people. I'm still working. But I know that I have faults. I know that there are areas for me to improve on. I know that there's some unconscious bias going on in my life. But that doesn't mean that I'm diminished by that. It just means I have stuff to work on. And I'm willing to do the work. And I'd invite you to do the work as well. I was talking to Esther the other day, and she said, I'm not going to ask you to do what I wouldn't do myself, and I'm going to take that on. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't take on myself. I'm willing to do that work because I believe in this group of people, and I believe in this community, this city, this country, this world so much that I'm willing to do that work on myself. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's awkward, even if I mess up. Artemis said at the great I Am retreat how she was thinking of the Pink Panther and Inspector Clouseau, and how there was this end vision, and he would mess it up along the way. Every step, there was oh my God, oh, that's so awkward. Oh, it's so painful to watch all this. Everything kept happening. But the interesting thing is he always made it. And that's kind of how I see myself. I'm going to stumble through it, but I'm still invested in that outcome, and I'm willing to do that stumbling. I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to be embarrassed. Because the outcome is bigger and more important than that for me. There's an old wise sage that said, if you're in the dark room, don't beat the darkness with a stick, rather turn on the light. So the third thing with humility is to express gratitude. Gratitude can make us less self-focused and more focused on those around us. And there was a recent study that found that gratitude and humility are mutually reinforcing. So expressing gratitude can induce humility in us, and humble people have a greater capacity for conveying gratitude. Nelson Mandela said, as I have said, the first thing is to be honest with yourself. You can never have an impact on society if you've not changed yourself. Great peacemakers are all people of integrity, honesty, and humility. And as I think about that, and as I was processing this talk at the I Am retreat with all of my other buddies, my other silent buddies, I really got the question, does what I'm doing, does what I'm speaking, do my actions uplift people or tear them down? Do these words that I speak, does this email that I'm writing off, does it uplift the receiver or does it tear them down? And I have that in my head at all times because it is the guidepost to whether if I'm supporting the universe or if I'm trying to destroy. One of the principles of successful living is that our thoughts and actions must tend toward a constructive purpose if it's to eventually succeed. We cannot fight the universe and win. There's a story about a ship captain. He was sailing at nighttime, and he saw a vessel way up ahead. He saw a light way up ahead. And he told his radio technician to signal the vessel up ahead and to tell it to change course. And the reply was, "No, you must change your course." And the captain was so mad. He was like, "I am the captain of a U.S. Navy ship. You must change your course." And the answer came back, "No, you must change your course. I am a lighthouse." So the universe is the lighthouse in our lives. We can't storm the gates of heaven and get in. We can't bully or coerce. Sometimes I want to try and have it done my way, but the universe has other plans for my life. But a beautiful thing about that is recognizing that we live in a friendly universe. The lighthouse is interested in the ship's safety. It is invested in the safety and the successful passage of the ship. And that's how the universe is in our lives. It's invested in our own safety, success, vibrancy, and sometimes it means that we got to change course. And it takes a little bit of humility to do so. Ernest Holmes said, "Life holds nothing against us. It desires only our good. It wants us to be well, happy, and successful, but it wants us to play the game of life and play it the way that it's supposed to be played, in unity and cooperation with others." The last thing that I really got at this retreat was the idea of dominion. I want to encourage you to embody dominion in your life. Now, in the Bible, it said that humanity has complete dominion over the earth. And I think what got lost in translation is that people thought that dominion meant domination. But dominion means stewardship. To be good stewards. To be good stewards over this earth, the planet, and each other. To be good stewards of each other. I'm not interested in dominating. I want to have dominion. So I close today with these questions for you to think about. Am I teachable? Am I willing to learn? Think about all of the great teachers of all time. What does that sound? Wow. It's a sign. I think about Mother Teresa and Jesus, Albert Einstein. All of these people continued to learn, and they also were humble. So am I teachable? Am I willing to be humble? Do my actions and words and thoughts uplift, or do they tear people down? What is my purpose? And do I embrace dominion or domination in my life? Now, those are for you to answer. but I choose dominion. And I hope that you will too. Thank you. And so it is. Thank you. Let's pray. So knowing right here and right now, there is that infinite presence of love. It is a lighthouse beaming light into my life. Even when I'm in the darkness and I'm stumbling on my own path, there is an end result that I know is already in the mind of God, that is here in fruition in my life. And so I open and surrender to this truth revealing itself through me. I recognize and know that I have dominion in my life, that I have intrinsic value, and that each and every person that comes into my life, may I be one who uplifts, who supports, who embraces. And I embrace the idea that whatever in me is contrary to the greater good of humanity, the greater good of my life, I surrender it. I let it go. Those belief systems that I didn't even know I had, I just let them go. I release them. And I open to the divine wonder, the magnificence that is a new idea, a new possibility that is emerging in my life, and I welcome it. I surrender into it, and I allow it to guide me to my next right and perfect steps. As I know this for myself, I know this for each and every person who's here, each and every person who watches this online. May 2019 be the best year ever for each and every one of us to awaken to our divine truth. I accept it. I embody it. I am it. And I'm grateful for it. And so it is.